Hi everyone, my name is Vicky and I'm here to introduce to you all today the core concepts for an educational framework that I'm building called Values-Based Education for Sustainable Development. So a little bit about me. I am currently doing my master's in the management of sustainable development goals after receiving my undergrad majoring in biomedical sciences and minoring in nutritional and nutraceutical sciences, as well as obtaining a certificate in knowledge mobilization. I am super passionate about sustainability, community engagement, creative content making, and education, not only for knowledge, but for skills and values as well. This education model is just about that, and I'm so honored to introduce that to you all today. In the next 15 minutes, I want to introduce to you the actual VbESD framework, because that is the reason behind my research and where the impact comes from. So, why values-based education for sustainable development? And why build this education framework? Because our world needs it. The climate crisis needs it, and our future generations need it. Right now, our society can use a lot more intrinsic positive values, because values are what make up our mindsets and ultimately create the culture within a workplace, a school, a business, and our community. And our education system has so much potential to foster this true well-being of ourselves and our planet, which is the ultimate goal of sustainable development. This brings me to the Global Action Plan of Education for Sustainable Development, put forth by the United Nations, a key enabler for all the other SDGs. This is integral to the fourth Sustainable Development Goal of quality education. Quality education shouldn't be just about math, sciences, languages, but also about social intelligence, communication, collaboration, and problem solving and creative thinking for the world's issues. We should be also teaching people and children how to live meaningful lives where success isn't just a grade or percentile, but where it is also intertwined with their personal fulfillment and well-being, their relationship with others, their contribution to their community, their intrinsic motivation and purpose. During my research, I did a literature review on what best practices exist for sustainability education, as well as what the major barriers are. One of the key themes I found was the importance, yet lack of, effective education, which is education that builds values, beliefs, and attitudes alongside social and emotional intelligence and capacity. Effective education was identified as crucial to effective sustainability education for students to care about sustainability and change their behaviors and attitudes to reflect that. However, it is also the most challenging type of education because it involves values. However, we are in luck, because there's a global movement started in 2006 in the UK called Values-Based Education that underpins educational environments, mostly primary schools, with universal positive human values such as kindness, respect, love, hope, joy, courage, and more. Values-based education isn't simply values education. It's not just teaching about the values, like what is kindness, what is respect. It's so much deeper than that. Values-based education is about understanding and living the values in the day-to-day life and setting up that environment such that students really practice them and where the values are embedded within the school environment on all levels. This extra effort significantly benefits the schools where the students learn better, their performance increases, there's less disruptive behavior, which leads to more purposeful and engaged learning that fosters well-being and sincere connections. It seems that we're all collectively realizing and agreeing on the necessity of both sustainability and effective education. Within the 2 surveys that I conducted, out of the 128 people who took my first survey, each and every person responded 5 or more out of 10 to sustainability being important and education for sustainability being valuable to society. I built values-based education for sustainable development to fill this gap, to combine values-based education and education for sustainable development into a synergistic approach and new education framework. It applies the principles of values-based education into education for sustainable development with the goal of fostering sustainability as an intrinsic value to all its students. It does this through 8 pillars or core components, with the first 7 pillars being directly adopted from values-based education. Each pillar works hand in hand with each other, and together they spell out miracles. With our time together, I'm going to try to at least introduce each pillar here. The first pillar is modeling, which refers to the modeling of behaviors that the staff and students display, leading each value by example. In VBE schools, all the staff are role models for values-based living, from their words to all their interactions. VbESD schools build on top of this by adding the value of sustainability that grounds all of the other values. The VBE foundation is important though because sustainability is not an isolated value. It needs all the other values together as well, which VBE already sets up perfectly by itself. And VbESD just brings that additional explicit sustainability focus. Modeling sustainable behaviors include recycling, reducing waste, reducing resources, saving energy and water, using reusable items, and including sustainability into day-to-day conversations. This does not mean that the staff are expected to lead a perfect example of sustainable behaviors, though. It is simply bringing more explicit attention to achievable and feasible behaviors when possible and actually talking about it. The second pillar, the inner curriculum, is all about honing self-awareness and self-regulation. Values-based education operates with the belief that at the core of every individual is an authentic inner essence that is not bogged down or locked away by limiting or negative experiences. Values-based educators use activities to attune and relate their students to their internal worlds and give them that opportunity to explore within instead of responding to their outside environment, which cuts through their external front and behavior. In a similar way, the VbESD framework draws on this inner curriculum to cut through the main barriers of sustainability, such as convenience, instant gratification, materialism, and excessive consumption, developing inner peace for long-term visions and goals, intrinsic motivations, delayed gratification, and deep empathy. By allowing the child to focus on themselves and look inside, self-understanding, self-regulation, and self-leadership emerge, which are all crucial for sustainable behaviors. The third pillar is reflection. In values-based education schools, there is dedicated time each day for guided and unguided reflection, for purposeful silence and visualizations. For children, this practice is extremely powerful for developing maturity of thought and emotions. The VbESD framework takes this existing pillar of reflection from the VBE model and embeds the value of sustainability within it by connecting the guided reflections to sustainability. So, everyone, take a deep breath and close your eyes. Relax your muscles and smile. Today's value is on courage. Reflect back to when you felt courageous. It could have been when you shared what you were grateful for this morning. It could have been when you raised your hand in class to share your thoughts. Now, grasping the light of courage in your hands, feel it rush into your heart, your soul, all around you. And imagine everything you can do with all that courage. The world needs courage to thrive and flourish. It is with courage that people follow their dreams and put in the effort to turn their ideas into reality. It is with courage that new technologies are invented, and with courage that people speak up about issues in the world. It is with courage that people stand up for nature, for the environment, and ask the world to pay attention to protecting our earth. It is with courage that people stand up for what is right, and for their friends in trouble, and for telling the truth when situations are hard. Now imagine how the world would look if people had more courage. I wrote this additional minute of reflection to expand on an existing example of reflection on courage that was provided in VBE's online training. I wanted to show that reflection time can be used to guide students not only to visualize the value at hand and being present to their thoughts, but also guided through how that value relates back and shows itself as a crucial element to a better world. As you heard, the students are invited to imagine a world where that value is abundant and where they and the people in the community around them are all practicing that value. By imagining such a world, this fosters their self-motivation as well as optimistic thinking and action that lies at the core of this reflection pillar. There's a lot more I would love to touch on for this pillar, but due to limited time, let's move on to the fourth pillar of atmosphere and ethos. A school's atmosphere is what surrounds each learner, both inside and outside the classroom, permeating the entire school. Instead of an atmosphere focused on achieving high grades and results, values-based schools focus on bringing a deep positive difference to the students' worldview that underpins their thoughts and decisions. A VbESD school atmosphere builds onto this ethos with an additional focus on learning from and living in harmony with nature. Clear nature elements and displays with explicit focus on sustainability would be present. Anywhere from living walls and plants, school gardens, outdoor time and outdoor education, boards, displays, stickers, signage, and natural architecture, as well as green space. These explicitly show anyone who's walking through the school that this school is committed to sustainability and making that difference in the world. The fifth pillar is curriculum. In the VBE framework, the curriculum is not only focused on numeracy, literacy, and memorizing facts. Values sit at the core of it and transcends all the layers of the curriculum, where it is taught not only implicitly but explicitly. This actually promotes academic learning as well. The VbESD curriculum includes everything in a VBE curriculum, but also adds on explicit lesson planning about sustainable development. Anything that can be related to sustainability without compromising other teachings is done so. While the other pillars speak to the values and attitudes within the definition of education for sustainable development, this pillar is where the knowledge and skills come in. The VbESD curriculum will explain the science and definition of sustainability while addressing the issues, impacts, solutions, root causes, and intersectionality of climate change and unsustainable development. Now onto the sixth pillar, leadership. Leadership within VbESD includes the values-based living in VBE, but with an added leadership pertaining to sustainable attitudes, behaviors, and lifestyles. It is also important to note that in values-based educational settings, leadership does not only encompass teacher leadership that influences their students. Leadership also starts from the student itself. Values-based education fosters self-leadership for the students to live the values they learn, leadership to encourage and keep their classmates and peers accountable, leadership to their family when they share about the values and live them at home, leadership within their community by modeling their values outside of school and into their daily interactions and behavior, and a global leadership once they become engaged, responsible, and global citizens. Everyone who's within the student's environment is part of a ripple effect that is deeply transformative. This brings us to the seventh pillar, the ethical vocabulary. The ethical vocabulary grounds values-based education by providing its students with a common language that expresses their understanding of the values, a tool to communicate their thoughts and reasonings from that shared understanding. In a VbESD school, the ethical vocabulary is expanded to include sustainability as well. The important part here is that they not only know the vocabulary, they fully understand and experience it as well, which relates to the intentional process that VBE schools go through to decide their school's values and how they're taught and brought up at every opportunity. VbESD schools add one more step to this process by relating each value to sustainability, such that it is then rooted within all the other values. This allows the school the freedom to choose whichever values are important to them, while also maintaining the explicit goal and overall foundation of sustainability. In a normal, non-VBE school, we might give praise to our students, which is amazing. We might say, "I love the story that you wrote. You have great imagination." There's nothing wrong with that. But in a VBE school, we can take that praise a little deeper and connect it to a value. For example, we might say, "I love the story that you wrote. There's so much hope filled inside." This praise offers a tangible value for why that story was good. Now in a VbESD school, this value is dug a little deeper to explicitly say why it's important for either people, the planet, or sustainability. We can say, "This hope is what will create our brighter future and let us see the potential for the world where people are happy and the planet is healthy." I love it. Now the last pillar is pillar number 8, sustainable school operations. This is a new pillar and the final distinction between VBE and VbESD. Sustainable school operations consist of everything that happens at an institutional level, both visible and invisible to its pupils. Examples include the food service, the resources used, building design, equipment used, green space, products used, professional development, and signage. These changes are more institutional, so developing this pillar will take more than just simply staff behavior. It also needs financial resources and time as well. Guidelines will be provided for these sustainable school operations to serve as ideal goals, and VbESD schools would simply just try their best and implement whatever is feasible and possible alongside a reasonable time frame. The ultimate goal in this pillar is to have such embedded institutional sustainability that it will be the clear and easy choice all around. And there you are, the 8 pillars of values-based education for sustainable development. We use a combination of modeling, an inner curriculum, reflection, a positive atmosphere, curriculum for change, leadership from within, an ethical vocabulary for ethical intelligence, and sustainable school operations. Altogether, values-based education for sustainable development is truly what can change the world and its unsustainable culture. Values are what define mindsets, which then build routines and structures, which then make up a group's culture. So by nurturing positive values alongside sustainability as a value in children, VbESD will in turn sprout ethical mindsets, empowering routines and structures, and ultimately a culture of social transformation where people, animals, and nature can all flourish together. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I'm so honored to share this with you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.